What's up, everybody? It is me, King Alpha. Hope everybody's doing great. So obviously today, we got some news in terms of a patch and everything, but also 2 days ago, or well, more or less yesterday, we did get an update in terms of drops for Conqueror's Blade. I already knew about the drops, but I didn't know what was in it. Um, However, I'm going to obviously give you guys all the insight. Now, I know I have not been playing CB as much. I am obviously going to be doing this Twitch drops more or less because the drops are actually really good or they're really decent. Some will be like, oh, they're really ass. But hey, sometimes free things, especially if they're like certain things, are really good. So you got to take what it is. But I'm also going to be playing CB tomorrow because there's a pretty big update coming in tomorrow in terms of obviously Halloween events, but additionally in terms of units. And this will most likely shift the meta heavily. Um, when looking at some of these things. Now, some of these things can all be nice on paper. However, in game, they can actually not be good. So I'm not going to be calling anything like massively OP or anything like that. But I'm just going to be covering over Twitch drops really quick. And that is from the 28th all the way to the November 7th. And then we'll talk about the patch notes really quick. So for anybody wondering, the first campaign is from October 28th all the way to November 1st. The actual total time that you need to watch to actually get these are only 7.5 hours compared to usually it's about 10 hours. So you get Sparkling Rockets, obviously not that great. Chest of Resources, obviously bleh. But the Greater Scrolls of Glory is really, really good, whether you save it for this season or for next season. And one Silver Key. Silver keys, I've always said I do wish that they at least would increase the amount to at least three, but a free silver key is a free silver key. And a werewolf mask, and it's permanent. The werewolf mask is pretty cool. I think they had that last Halloween as well, in terms of the actual skin, but you had to buy it, I think, with Sovereigns. So, or I think it was an event or something. But yeah, there is going to be the werewolf mask and everything in there, which I believe it is a pretty cool mask, but that's all dependent on what you really like. So next is the second campaign is November 1st to November 4th. And obviously they all start at 12 UTC. But you get two sparkling rockets, 20 powdered silver, which is powdered silver, 3-day premium count, which is good, silver key again, but you also get a free purple horse, so a shadow horse. Now I know a lot of people have always wondered how to get more horses and everything, and usually Halloween Twitch drops, and usually sometimes around Christmas Twitch drops, they usually do release horses and stuff. So you definitely need to make sure that you get this campaign drop right here. This is if let's say you're busy during Halloween or whatever, this is the one that you really need to make sure that you're here for because you do get a purple horse. Now the next one between November 4th and November 7th is you get two sparkling rockets, which again 5 gold dust. I'll be honest, not that's really even a schematic is a bit better than 5 gold dust. But the Greater Scroll of Glories, again, a random artillery chest, a rare one, and Lotus Water. So I know this campaign, this campaign and this campaign are probably the better ones compared to the last campaign. However, everything is for your rewards, so you can't really fully complain about it. But hey, I hope to see you guys there on the 28th at 12 UTC. And of course, again, you guys are gonna need to make sure that you re-enable, you reconnect your account and all that type of stuff in terms of drops. And to go into your inventory to uh obviously get all these free rewards. But you do need to make sure you watch it, and then you also do claim and stuff. So anyways, this isn't even the big part. The big part is the next update coming tomorrow in terms of this. So there is two events that are ending right now, which I believe is the Mighty Guardian event, and I think there's another event that is ending as well. However, they are doing a lot of Halloween events and everything in terms of promotions and all that type of stuff. So there's going to be like new skins and this and that. They did change the map pool. So the new map pool is Wallfort, Fjord, Hidden City, Harbor City, Sun City, Carrot Castle, Dalsu Fort, Turavoro, Shield of the Capital, Allenberg, Linwood Fortress, and Brock Astray. So they really don't like. What is it? I forgot what's that map called. Great Wall. They really don't like Great Wall. I actually enjoy playing Great Wall, but it is what it is. They improved the visual effects of Conqueror City, which means that they did like whatever little effects, but that's not the important bit here. The important bit is the unit balancing and optimization here. Now, for the Braccio, they have increased the hitbox of Brace and reduced the distance where they are incapable of attacking enemies to 2 meters, and it was 5. So now, enemies, I think, obviously after a certain point in for the Braccio, you just wouldn't get hit anymore. But they have now reduced that, or, in terms of attacking all that type of stuff, from it was 5 meters, now it's 2 meters. And their brace will now follow the movement of enemies with a certain distance. So, obviously depending on how long the Fortebraccio thing is, this is gonna definitely need to be tested. I've always liked Fortebraccio, but you always need to be a really good Fortebraccio player to actually get the best value out of them, especially with all the shield units kind of really dominating right now. They also increase brace armor penetrations. Increase braces armor penetration and damage by 10%, and rate of attacks by 35%. Also reduce damage taken from cavalry during brace by 15%. So I know that they gave a lot of love to Cav, but this update is more or less trying to create that counter to Cav, even though the Cav is not being touched. So Cav can still be good if used correctly, but also they are making sure that pikes and halberdiers are more or less the anti-cav is actually being like the actual anti-cav. So the next thing was they improved the AI of their free attacks. Now this is always huge because low key back then, I think during a lot of the times you would have it where you're using Fortebraccio and I would press V on them and it felt like they would miss every time, or like a hero would just jump and they'd all miss. And it's like it was so annoying how sometimes even a hero could 1v1 my Fortebraccio or whatever, but it is what it is. But now they would try to use their range advantage and have increased their attack rate by roughly 28%. So they're increasing the attack rate a lot of the Fortebraccio. I wonder how good their AI is obviously going to be improved. But it's definitely going to be a unit I'm going to be using tomorrow and testing out and everything in terms of like, okay, this unit's doing this now. Okay, which units, because these are a lot of the purple units, whereas we have gold units right now, like of Varangians and Shield Maidens, that are Fortebraccio, especially not in a 1v1, are going to be able to do anything. So it's going to be interesting to see this. Now, this is really fun, and this was the buff that I was expecting for Halberdier Sergeants before, and now they have basically given it to them. So they increased their health by about 300 and something points, and their health growth from 164 to 171. They now take greatly reduced damage from the first cavalry attack during stand firm. They need to re-enter formation to reset this effect. So this is interesting because most Cav, obviously, especially Halberdier Sergeants, have been not the best versus Cav. Like they can obviously hurt Cav like Keshigs and this and that. However, Halberdier Sergeants have always been, I think, more have been better versus infantry, and infantry that don't have a high block. So this is interesting to see. It's just interesting to see that they are going to be doing a little bit more damage to actually cavalry this time around, and it's Halberdier Sergeants as well. Really low leadership too. As well, they would no longer move around to fill positions during stand firm, will now also reform formation quicker after being hit by crowd control effects and launch a counterattack. So this is interesting when they say they will launch a counterattack. Obviously, what kind of counterattack. And I've always didn't like it where, like, as for example, a short sword comes in and just belly flops into your Halberdier Sergeants. Boom, all of your units get clustered around, and then they're like slowly going back into formation. So this is really nice to see that they're going to reform quicker. Obviously, this all needs to be tested. And it also says they will now form up in a tighter formation. So we obviously need to see how good what type of tighter formation this is. And it doesn't actually say whether this is in scatter formation, this is in phalanx, or whatever. So gonna also be interesting to see what type of tighter formation this is. Now the blue halberdiers are also getting a buff, and blue halberdiers, funny enough, in the blue era are nasty, and I always loved using them with my good friend Josh. So this is gonna be very interesting to see. But they got a health buff again, and then it says they will take greatly reduced damage from the first cavalry attack and the stand firm. So it's almost the same thing as halberdier sergeants, but you have the blue side of them. So gonna be very interesting in terms of that. Now, polearm infantry damage to cavalry from the swamp unit trait has now been increased from 16% to 26%. So this patch is basically all anti-cav, and if I'm honest, I haven't even touched CB ever since they did the whole buff to all the cav and everything. Liao Rangers have been insane and all that type of stuff. It was like one of those things where I was getting killed by just cavalry units and shield maidens 24/7. So I was like, all right, I'm done. It's just pointless. But also Imperial Pike Guards increased advanced base armor penetration by 12% and base damage by 10%. So that's interesting. So you also have men at arms getting love. Now this is interesting because you can't use men at arms and paladins in the same game. So it's going to be really interesting to see what people do with men at arms. And they did the same with spear sergeants as well. But the base health of men at arms has been increased. And then you also have, after being attacked while in cover commander, they will take 60% reduced damage and deal 45% increased damage. This effect decays quickly over 6 seconds. Now, this is interesting because if you're using, certain CC commanders like, let's just say, Polax or Maul, and you have men at arms, and then you just, grab the guy and bring him over. I wonder, are they going to just start? They have to take damage, though. They have to be attacked. So I'm wondering how they will do in terms of their AI and everything, but that'll just have to be tested. And then the same thing happens with Spear Sergeants. Now, the only problem with Spear Sergeants in terms of this is that, Spear Sergeants can be easily CC'd, but maybe Spear Sergeants in the lower games are going to be a bit more fun to use, and even probably a bit more fun to use Spear Sergeants even in bandit raids or something in like the Purple era or whatever. But I don't know, in terms of the spear sergeants being buffed again in terms of this, we'll have to really see. I don't think in the higher games you're really going to be seeing spear sergeants like that. Paladins are getting a huge buff again. So they have their health increased by basically 500 and something. Battle prayer immediately restores 8% health, and it was 5%, and now also restores 350 health every 0.5 seconds for 6 seconds, and it previously was 250 for 15 seconds. So I don't know if someone wants to do the math on this and see if whether you actually get more health now in terms of battle prayer or not, but yeah. But now they also have it where they also take reduced damage during the skill animation. So a lot of the times what you would do is you would press that button and then cancel the skill animation. I wonder if you have to let the skill animation kind of go off this time in order to actually get this effect, because usually maybe you just still get the regular effect of your healing and stuff, but will you also get the reduced damage taken during this, if you cancel the skill animation? So very interesting. Reduce the block cost of free attacks and increase damage by 16%. After taking damage, they will take 30% reduced damage and deal 15% increased damage. And this quickly decays over 6 seconds. So a lot of these things are going to need to be tested because they usually last over 6 seconds, which 6 seconds is a long time. But it's like, are you going to be able to output a lot of damage in that 6 seconds that they are having this? So it's going to be interesting. Like, how are paladins really going to maybe even fight against, I guess you would say palace guards, you know what I mean? It's going to be interesting whether, paladins will just smack all over berserkers, all that type of stuff. So they also increase damage taken from their weak spot characteristic. It's reduced from 20% to 10%. So a lot of the times I remember I was able to just go behind paladins, especially in a blob, drop them all to the floor and then immediately kill them all. So, with the 10% reduced now, I wonder if, obviously, hitting from the back is going to be the better part, but like, are you not going to be able to kill paladins immediately like you could before. The new effect has been added to elite warriors characteristic. Damage taken from the front is reduced by 36% while they have their shields raised. So the main thing too about paladins is that what you would do is you would cancel the animation. You would XV them all the time, and they would attack faster. Their AI was better. you know do you now just kind of leave them in for me? Like, do you leave them in V sometimes? Gonna be need to be tested, of course. Next, stalwarts. Each successful block brace, or each successful block during brace greatly reduces block cost for 1 second, this is kind of good because if you think about it, if you're getting you know, if you're reducing the block, you can immediately advance and then brace again, which was huge back then. You were able to just go like that all the time, just advance and brace, and it was doing insane damage. So it's going to be interesting to see. It says they now take after taking damage, they will take 30% reduced damage and deal 15% increased damage. And this effect obviously decays over 6 seconds. So the thing is that after this skill, and this is the thing as well, it doesn't say if there's like a cooldown on this. So this means after 6 seconds after it decays, if you do it again, I believe it just procs immediately again and then decays. But I wonder if there's going to be a way to actually tell if like when the effect decays or not, because that's one thing. There's always been that thing where it's like, okay, how can I tell if it's finished unless they're like glowing or something. And they also did the same thing where they reduced it from 20% to 10% from their damage being taken from the backside. Monastic Knights. The first part of their charge cannot be interrupted by crowd control effects. Huge. Monastic Knights have always been like a really fun unit to use, but they always constantly were just getting belly flopped on or stopped in 2 seconds, and you're just like, I just used all that leadership for no fucking reason, and then there's all better cav and stuff. And now the skill cooldown of charge is reduced by 6 seconds for each time a knight is interrupted during it. So that's really huge as well, because I believe the cooldown on monastic's charge is what, I think 40. I may be wrong on that, but that's huge. So monastic knights might actually be a bit fun to use as well now. Kriegs are getting a buff, which I've already said back then as well, that Kriegs and Imperial, Arquebusiers definitely need buffs, because it's one of those things where like people just didn't want to use ranged, and I'm hoping this doesn't encourage everyone to start using Kriegs, but I'm definitely going to try Kriegs tomorrow. But they increase their health and their accuracy by 28% and their base fire rate by 6%. So more or less, Kriegs are going to run out of ammo faster, but at least they're going to be even more accurate than they kind of already are. So I'm going to be interested to see how this works. But again, it's golden era and stuff, so some of these units might shine heavy in when it's a locked era, but when it's all eras, so tier 3, tier 4, tier 5, some of these units like Kriegs aren't, even though they're good, right? They look good, they might only be good during the purple era. Same thing with incendiary archers. I looked at this and it was like, okay, they're gonna be good when it's blue era. So it's gonna be interesting. But let's continue. Flaming arrows now startle horses and can interrupt charging cavalry. Reduce the cooldown of flaming arrow to 20 seconds. It was 60, which was always something that I fucking hated on incendiary archers. It was one of those things where it's like 60-second cooldown. You had to make sure that you did press 2, at the correct moment when using these archers. It was like, ugh. But they also increased the firing rate of flaming arrow by 20% and ammo consumption by 33%. So I am glad that they did increase the ammo consumption by 33%, because I do like when something gets a buff but it also has like that little bit of a negative effect. So I am glad that it does take 33% extra ammo consumption, but that fire rate is also increased by 20%, and you have the 20-second cooldown on it. So in terms of being able to use these units during tier 3 era, you're definitely going to be seeing fire archers a lot more in the tier 3 era compared to maybe like Raton marksman. Raton marksman huge, but this is amazing. Next is Iron Reapers, and I'm so glad they did this with Iron Reapers. But blunt armor penetration and blunt damage is increased by 30% when using charge, with their flails. So this is huge because it's just like the charge always felt like it was always a nice effect, but it was one of those things where swords have now, ever since that patch, swords were always better than flail, and now you can kind of do charge again, and I wonder how well this will do versus a bunch of Varangian Guard or even Shield Maiden. I think it's going to be so interesting. And now they also added this effect as well, added characteristic to dual wielders. Damage dealt to infantry is increased by 10% when using swords, and damage dealt to shield infantry is increased by 30% when using flail charge. So it's gonna be great to use this unit versus Varangian Guard, which are considered a shield, a shield infantry, and the same as stalwarts and shield maidens. It's going to be really interesting to see Iron Reapers have a nasty charge again. Obviously, you do need to be careful. It might still be one of those things where you do stick with using Iron Reapers with swords sometimes, because you can get that immunity. But it's going to be one of those things where you might stay with flail for a little bit longer, and then depending on what you're facing, you might switch to swords to get that immunity. Going to be very interesting to see. Um, and then they have some miscellaneous things, but I want you guys to let me know what you guys think about these buffs to the units. I think this is awesome. Um, I think it's definitely going to change the meta a bit more. I hope that we don't only just see, still Shield Maidens and Varangian Guards in the meta. And I'm actually really excited for even next season when they come out with, whatever season it is. And then you have the tier 3 units and the tier 4 units. I'm actually a bit, interested to actually play with the tier 4 era units because of fortibrattios and halberdier sergeants, units that men at arms, paladins, and stalwarts, units that you don't fully see all the time. That is just going to be really fun to use these guys in that era lock. So anyways, let me know what you guys think. I'm gonna catch you guys next time, but this is a pretty huge update, so I'll see you guys. Peace.